back to World Crisis Radio. Remember, keep up with what I'm saying about the world on Twitter. Webster G. Tarpley on Twitter. WEBSTERGTARPLEY on Twitter. Global price fears mount as food raw materials soar. Europe's central bank head warns on inflation. So, Trichet, the head of the European Central Bank, now threatens to go to a full burning deflationary policy by increasing the interest rates to respond to what he sees is a jump upwards in consumer prices. Well, this is certainly there. From the bottom reached in the middle, say, of 2009, we're shown here in the Wall Street Journal, Brazil, China, UK, Eurozone, and U.S. all spiking upward. And part of this is increased demand from China, Brazil, and other developing dirigist economies. Some of it, of course, is the QE2, the quantitative easing by Bernanke, the $600 billion worth of support for the bonds of these bankrupt U.S. banks, the zombie banks of Wall Street. So they're going to strangle the European economies even further. Just this week, very important news, the British austerity plan is a program of national suicide. That we knew. But it has worked so well that in just the last quarter of last year, it cut the British gross domestic product by 0.5%. So they're negative 0.5% of GDP in Great Britain. You keep going down that path, and you'll be on the junk heap of history, impotent, irrelevant, isolated, and impoverished. So no austerity. Now, no austerity. Let's look at the rest of the economic background. This morning, there's some mildly positive news, a little bit of an uptick in the U.S. GDP in the last couple of months of last year. So now we have all these manic commentators. There's no double-dip recession. Yeah, there's one continuous depression, and you have little upticks and downticks within that. It's obviously not a perfectly linear process. We're also told now that the deficit for the current year is going to be above $1.5 trillion. Well, it's not good, but it's not the end of the world either. If you want to take your money out of U.S. Treasuries, where are you going to put it? You're going to put it in the euro, in Japan? Where are you going to put it? You want to put it in China? Well, then you'll take your chances over there, too, where inflation is now rising. So the Social Security Administration has now begun to dip into the trust fund, which is trillions of dollars of U.S. Treasury securities, the most reputable securities in the world. This will lead to new calls by hysterical Republican jackals to begin privatizing Social Security, so even more of that money will go into the hands of Wall Street. But let's look at the Obama State of the Union. Now, the prelude to the Obama State of the Union, as I write in an essay on Tarpley.net, and as I said immediately with a tweet, Olbermann, this is a firing engineered by Obama. It's either Obama personally or people acting in favor of Obama, and I'm sure with his collusion. The same day that Olbermann was fired, you had Immelt, the head of GE, which again is not an industrial corporation but a hedge fund. It's GE Capital, and they were in on the bailout and on the $3.3 trillion of Fed lending. On the same day that Olbermann was fired, Immelt was cavorting in Schenectady, New York, with Olbermann, and it was clear this was to protect Obama's left flank as he engages in this extremely sharp right turn. He's going to sell out his base. He's going to stab the American people in the back on a whole series of issues. Now, Olbermann was a loose cannon. Olbermann was emotionally somewhat unstable and very willing to make these special comments, which he would go into flights of rhetoric and begin attacking people. One case, I think, the most recent one, the thing that may have gotten him fired, in the first week of December, when Obama announced that he was going to sell out the Democratic Party and his own voters by approving the monstrous Bush tax cuts for plutocrats and parasites, including the estate tax, and nothing for the 99ers, and indeed begin undermining Social Security. Olbermann attacked Obama with a fairly vigorous special comment, and as I recall correctly, one of the phrases in it was, "You think you're going to get reelected with this? I've got news for you. You may not even get renominated the way you're going." And I think that maybe crossed the line, because, of course, Obama lives in terror of someone coming forward to challenge him in New Hampshire and the other primaries. So it's clear Immelt was being appointed to yet another of these White House commissions. This time he was going to be the head of it. A couple of words. Immelt tells MSNBC, dump this character, rid me of him, and the rest of them all got it. Right? And the big beneficiary is Lawrence O'Donnell, who was the one of these characters who in December stuck with Obama. He said, "Oh, this is a compromise. We have to have compromises. I know about Congress. I know the seriousness and the effort of these people and how wonderful they are, these wonderful staffers." He came from the Daniel Patrick Moynihan School. The previous time that the age for getting your Social Security pension was raised, you can thank Daniel Patrick Moynihan, a despicable character in every way. Senator from New York, I'm sorry to say. And that's where O'Donnell comes from. So we have Olbermann fired, Maddow, Ed Schultz, others. Matthews obviously got the message. This is a very effective way to suppress one of the principal organs of criticism. The idea that this was Comcast. Why would it be Comcast? First of all, MSNBC is under the control of GE and will be so for weeks and months to come. That has just been approved, but that has not occurred yet. And why would Comcast? What is the interest of Comcast? With Immelt, it's very clear. Immelt has made a big bet on Obama. And the way in which Olbermann served this design was Olbermann who basically got Obama the Democratic nomination, which was a big step on the way to getting elected. So that's the prelude. Now, let's look at the speech. The Sputnik moment, right? October 1957, Russia, Soviet Union launches the first artificial satellite of the Earth. Going around the world, it's beeping. The U.S. is flat-footed. The U.S. tries to catch up. A couple of rockets blow up. And finally, I think Vanguard, 3 or 4 months later. A huge shock, the complacency, the racism, the Russophobia, all of this swept aside. And the National Defense Education Act, a lot of us went to college, graduate school, thanks to Sputnik, thanks to the U.S. response. Now, Obama comes out and says, we need a Sputnik moment. Only the hollow demagogy of Obama could imagine a Sputnik moment where you're also destroying your space program. The shuttle is on its very last legs. It's essentially on life support. It's kept going with formaldehyde until the middle of this year. God knows what's going to happen after that. There is no space program anymore, and the demagogue Obama is willing to come out there and say, let's have Sputnik number 2. Well, what is Sputnik number 2? It turns out to be green jobs, these backward, wretched, anti-economical technologies, the windmill, the hypermodern windmill, and the solar cell. And the problem with these things, of course, is that unless the price of oil goes to $500 a barrel or something like this, they are anti-economical. They cannot be made to be profitable without government subsidies. Why, if these things are so great, don't they just take off on their own? And the answer is, of course, that they don't. Obama did mention clean coal and nuclear as part of a litany with solar and wind, but we know that this is simply window dressing. The critical problem here is this demagogy about green jobs. It is the crippling thing, because the more green jobs you have, the poorer you are, because you're paying in subsidies to forms of technology. When you build one of these windmills, the energy that goes into the windmill is more than you'll ever get out of it. So the more windmills you build, the bigger your net energy deficit becomes, and the more you've wasted resources. It should be going into the most modern nuclear reactors, and we need 100, count them 100. Back in a minute on World Crisis Radio.